All right, Niall, what's in your notes today?
Well, we might have common agreement to a degree. Again, the Democratic Party is in the doldrums. And isn't me saying that, it was Bernie Sanders' verdict during his big CNN town hall event with AOC last night. Party loyalists will complain that Sanders himself has never formally joined the party. But that's not really the point. His prognosis is right and everyone knows it. Democratic voters are pretty unhappy with the Democratic Party. A poll in July, also from CNN, showed that 22% of Democrats, almost 1 in 4, held an unfavourable view of their own party, and an additional 11% offered a sullen no opinion to the pollsters. Those numbers, which are basically stats that measure the contours of an unhappy base, were twice as big among Democrats as the equivalent figures among Republicans. Now, anytime a critique of the Democratic Party comes from someone like Sanders or AOC, it gets cast as a matter of the left versus the centre-left. That's kind of sort of true, but it's not a matter of the bare bones of policy or doctrine. It's not really about whether a politician is officially a Democrat or an independent or a democratic socialist. It's something more fundamental. There's a groundswell of Americans, left of centre for sure, who simply don't believe the Democratic Party establishment is speaking the truth. It's not offering clarity or courage or conviction. And with the stakes as high as they are right now, that's just not acceptable. The most recent establishment Democrat to find this out the hard way was New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. Booker sat down for an interview with the I've Had It podcast, an increasingly popular show hosted by Jennifer Welch and Angie Sullivan. The pod is avowedly pro-democratic. Its Oklahoma-based hosts recoil in horror at the Trump agenda. But if Booker and his staff thought the senator was in for an easy ride, they were wrong. An exchange between Welch and Booker over Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu went viral for all the wrong reasons. Let's watch.
Do you think he's a war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu? Do you think he's a war criminal?
Again, these are questions that a lot of people think are the important litmus tests that are loaded and hot. My urgency is to be an effective leader in bringing an end to this crisis. And I get these questions all the time that, to me, undermine my urgency.
It didn't end there.
I think the thing that Democrats get so frustrated with, where we are right now, where you see like the Zoran Mamdanis and the Graham Plattners rise up, because they can go on podcasts and you can say, do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal? And they just say, yes. And that's the end of it. It's not all of the rhetoric answering. It's like what happens to Democratic politicians, they go through this like prism, and then we can't ever get like the answer to yes or no conversations like you do with Bernie and others. And that's the frustration for the Democratic base with leadership. Do I think Netanyahu is worse than Trump?
Yes.
That was a simple question and a very weaselly answer that pleased no one. Another establishment Democrat had the same kind of fail on a different topic. Our old friend Andrew Cuomo, the former governor who's running for New York City mayor as an independent after Zoran Mamdani beat him in the party primary. In Cuomo's case, the subject was the prosecution by Trump's Justice Department of New York Attorney General Letitia James. Here's the former governor on New York station, Pix 11.
Should the president have gone after Tish James?
Well, my point is, and I think this is nearly uniform, both sides, Democrats and Republicans, believe there's too much politics in the justice system.
Yeah, this is what your statement said yesterday, but should the president have gone after the attorney general? Was he right to do that?
Well, he will say he didn't go after her. The prosecutor will say they were just doing justice, which is what Tish James said about going after President Trump.
That answer was so halting and bloodless that Mamdani himself eagerly tweeted it out. Even California Governor Gavin Newsom got into trouble in yet another podcast recently when he gave a weirdly halting answer after the host Van Lathan asked him about the influence of AIPAC. The problem here isn't really not being left-wing enough. The problem's giving mealy-mouthed, weak responses on fundamental questions. Is Netanyahu a war criminal? The answer, in my view, is yes. The evidence is overwhelming. Is Trump targeting Tish James because he wants retribution? Again, the answer seems yes, plainly. And you've no business looking for votes from Democrats if you're not willing to say so. I'm not picking on Booker or Cuomo for their own sakes. It's because these examples showcase a timidity that has hung around the Democratic Party establishment for too long. And that timidity has curdled and become to smell worse and worse, especially with where we are right now. If you don't speak the truth with some courage, how can you connect with Americans who are struggling in their own lives, deeply worried about their country, the world, and their own place within it? Now, it isn't all bleak. There are some people willing to be different, and I'm not only talking about Sanders or AOC or Mamdani. Graham Plattner is an oyster farmer, a military veteran, and a Democrat running for the party's Senate nomination in Maine. He's capturing the imagination of a lot of voters, and it's pretty easy to see why.
And once we have fought back fascism, once we have protected our democracy, once we have protected our rights and our freedoms, it needs to be a different kind of freedom. Not just a romantic freedom, not a freedom of talking about rights we must defend, but a material freedom. The freedom to have time and energy to live a life of dignity and joy. The freedom to be able to put your energy back into your neighbors and your community, not just scraping by so you can afford a roof over your head. That's not freedom. Struggling, existing, not being able to follow your dreams, that is not freedom.
See, pretty simple. If you have conviction, if you have some courage, if you can call things as they are, people understand. They understand because they can feel the truth. And they don't feel it from the Democratic Party leadership right now. And that simply has to change.
Yeah, exactly. Everything you said. I think it is about more a conviction than necessarily what your beliefs even are, although what your beliefs are clearly matters. But the Cory Booker is the clearest illustration.
Right.
He said, you asking me a direct question, do I think Netanyahu is a war criminal, is getting in the way of my urgency.
Right.
It was the most cringy, kind of safe, constructed by a consultant class phrasing. And this is why podcasts and new media can be improvements on traditional media, because it's harder to get away with that.
Right.
When you're talking to someone for 2 or 3 hours in the long form, you can maybe get away. It's easier to get away with that. I'm not saying you entirely get away with it, but it's easier in a briefer cable news hit where the host wants to hit a bunch of topic and move on to the next thing.
Right.
After they realize you're not going to directly answer their question. Okay, fine, we got to move to the next thing.
Sure.
Whereas here, they had a moment for that host to say, well, wait a minute, it's not at all what we're looking for. And again, if Cory Booker doesn't believe that, he should just say no.
Exactly.
He should say, no, he's not a war criminal. He's trying to defend his country. He's doing what he thinks is best. I don't agree with all of it, but that's absurd. It's an ally of America, and it's for the people of Israel to decide whether he's an effective leader. If that's what he thinks, he could just say that.
Exactly.
You'd respect him more for just saying that.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to say anything to offend anyone or get in anyone's trouble. And then that makes people think, oh, it's because you're bought and paid for by AIPAC or Israel, whatever it is.
Exactly.
Or you just agree with them. I mean, like John Fetterman just agrees with what they're doing and says that plainly enough and is actually pretty popular less so among Democrats, but is making up for it with the amount of popularity he gets from Republicans, which is a strategy.
Right.
This strategy is just a failing strategy.
Right. I mean, I think that people do admire conviction. And I think that goes across the board regardless of people's ideology. And that is the kind of thing that's so lacking in that Booker answer. I would say the Cuomo answer as well, where it's just like, let me not really say anything. Right. And in the attempt to not offend anyone, you actually don't please or inspire or excite anyone either, and that's obviously
right. What are you doing? You have to be willing to risk something, or why are you even running? But so many of these people are not running for any reason to bring about any change or to. That's very background noise kind of thing. They enjoy being in power and they enjoy occupying these positions for forever. And the
in it to win it, as Hillary Clinton used to say, right? Which is like the purpose is to win the office.
Had plenty of these people as well, but they're being substantially replaced by enthusiastic, people who really feel serious conviction about how great President Trump is and how great his agenda is and manifest it at all times. And maybe when the camera's not rolling, they go, okay, I can let my hair down for a minute. But there's something genuine about it. You can't fake this to some degree. I talk to these people like, man, they are true believers.
Yeah, I mean, I think authenticity, not to be too cliched about it, but authenticity is important in politics or in anything, in life, really.
Yeah. Next up, 2 teens were charged in the assault of a former Doge staffer, Edward Korestein, also known as Big Balls. Can I say that on this morning's show? Well, I just did. He will not. The assailants will not receive jail time. We'll be discussing that up next.